Enough. Welcome to all of you. And could I remind you at this stage to remain on mute to avoid background noise? Let's get started. So welcome to the 5th session of the British Council Higher Education Dialogue Series, the Deep Dive. This series follows the original series that was launched in May and is a direct response to the challenges of COVID-19 for the higher education sector across the region and the UK. So far, 5,000 higher education representatives have joined us to identify key issues and come up with common solutions. And I have to say, I joined one of those sessions as a moderator previously, so some of you might have seen me before, and apologies for that. So the Deep Dive series is aimed at addressing some very specific topics during the pandemic. It enables us to exchange ideas, give you, the audience, some tangible actions that you can immediately apply to your working context. So today we're going to be exploring the student learning journey, and we're going to be hearing from a number of experts and really interesting people from the UK. First up, we will have Piers, who's the quality specialist for QAA Global. We're also going to hear from Dr. Dawn Lees, who's the Student Employability and Development Manager at the University of Exeter. My favourite, I think, today is we've got Scarlett Hilson-Wheeler, who's a third-year student at the University of Exeter studying an integrated master's in mathematics with some elements of proficiency in Spanish. So welcome, Scarlett. We also have Steve Wallace, who's the Employer Engagement and Student Employer Manager from the University of Exeter. And last but not least, we will have Kate Croucher, who's the Global Lead Talent Sourcing for FDM. What you will see is there are quite a lot of people from the University of Exeter, and I confess to being someone from the University of Exeter as well. Many years ago, I lectured there, so I'm thrilled that we have this participation from the southwest of the UK. So in addition to the panel, for all of you who are taking part, your input is really important to the whole process, and we'd like to make it as interactive as possible. So please, could you share your comments and questions in the chat box throughout the session? And can I also ask you, if you like a comment or question that has been posted, or if somebody has posted something that you would have liked to say, do like it, because what that does is it means that those questions and comments, if you like, filter up towards the top. So that would be really helpful for us. Some more ground rules just before we get started. Please stay on mute and avoid all background noise. Please turn your camera function off, because that helps us to save bandwidth and means that I won't disappear at some stage over the next couple of hours. I've talked about the chat box, and the session today will last 1.5 hours, and after the session we will send you the recording and all presentations from the registered guests. And we'll also be issuing a spotlight report next week. So as not to waste any more time, and time is incredibly precious today, and you don't really want to be looking at me too much, may I first invite Piers to start today's session by introducing the concept of a student learning journey. Over to you.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen, everybody, so just give me a couple of seconds. Okay, so as Simon said, my name is Piers and I'm one of the quality specialists at the QAA, the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education in the UK. So QAA work involves, we have a role in international developments in the quality assurance of higher education, and we work with the UK higher education sector and their overseas partners just to enhance the quality and integrity of higher education globally through our international work. And the focus that we're looking at today, the learner journey, came about through some of that international work in partnership with the British Council and a national quality assurance agency. So I'm just going to run through a few slides. So what does the concept of the learner journey really mean? really what the focus here is not on institutions or organizations such as schools or universities, but on the actual person, so the learner, and how that learner might develop holistically as they go through their education process. So for this presentation, what I'm going to do is go through the key stages that we identified, which we think have an impact on the learner, and look at what the aims of those stages are and how they link together. And in this case, with a particular focus on employability. It's probably important to say that the stages we're talking about and the descriptions, that they're an ideal really, and we're not suggesting every student experience is like this. So as you can see on this slide, there are 4 stages we have identified as key to this learning journey. And the emphasis really is that the journey begins prior to arriving at a higher education institution. I'm going to go through these key stages and look at the impact on the learner, but also look at what do we think these key stages are aiming to do, and how do they link together, again with that focus on employability. So as you can see, 4 stages: transition towards higher education, stage 2, beginning at higher education, stage 3, studying through and living through that, and stage 4, coming to the end of higher education. So I'm just going to run through those 4 stages now. So that first stage, that transition towards HE, and that pre-arrival and admission stage. So the focus of this stage is when students are still at school. And the aim is to ensure that students and parents have access to information that they need to help make an informed choice about what to study, and also taking into account their academic performance, but also their interests. And the idea is that this should be open to everyone. It shouldn't matter what kind of school you go to. So the information that students might need and parents might need could be in the form of data, so league tables, results, etc., but also should be through contact with those institutions, so those higher educations, and that contact could come around through outreach activities, which means activities where universities go into school and run particular activities such as workshops, which are designed to engage students and also focus on a number of different areas. So as the slide shows, it's not just about course information, but also about skills development, potential careers, prospect, and also that concept of personal development. So this stage is really about engagement between institutions, higher education institutions, and schools, with the learner as the connecting factor. The second stage is about commencing and preparing to study. And this key stage is really about helping students make that transition from being a student at school to university, and starting to make them aware of what is available. So not just in terms of their course information, although that is obviously very important, but also areas such as support, skills, and graduate attributes. So that really means, what does a university think its graduates should have in terms of its values and its skills? So to give you some examples, you might say that you want your graduates to engage, and that could mean in anything really, inquire, those kind of things. And during this stage, students should be given information about all the relevant elements, including awareness of career pathways, etc., just to help them make some decisions, or at least start to show some interest in some things and start to engage them in those areas and start to develop areas of interest. So as you can see on the slide, it's about transition, it's about signposting what's available, what's part of the process, what happens as you start at university, raising awareness, and also that focus on induction. And really the idea of induction not just being a one-off, a one-week thing at the beginning, but actually a series of staged activities that go on through maybe half a semester, and then continue in other forms throughout the university course. So the next stage is focusing on the actual study period. So here the focus is actually on the relationship between how teaching and learning, assessment, learning outcomes, and employability skills, how they all combine together and manifest themselves in a course program. So not just in terms of the program, but how the program is delivered. And the aim here is to help learners develop. As you can see from the slide, there's a focus on developing relationships, and those relationships are with stakeholders, and those stakeholders could be employers, could be students, could be alumni, and about how those relationships can help enhance a program. And it's also about developing skills and knowledge through that opportunity to engage in what we've put on the slide here as real world learning opportunities. And that really means real things that will help students be prepared for when they leave and go on to either to further study or to employability. So this is really about gaining understanding of what's involved here. So as you can see on the slide, focus is about linking teaching and learning assessment, learning outcomes, employability, engaging with employers to help develop programs, but also to deliver programs and be part of a program. And also it's about broadening access and widening out so that students get to see real things and can take part in things like internships, placements, etc. Okay, the final stage is about that graduation and employability stage, and this is really about bringing everything together. So as you bringing together that skills and knowledge. So really the move is the idea is that this is still part of that journey, and all of this has been embedded in their program. There may be more specific focus on careers, and there might be particular skills needed, and there may be further engagement with employers, alumni, which might be much more specific. Students may have decided they think they know which area they want to develop in. But the journey is not yet over, because as you can see on the last point in the slide, we're suggesting that there is continued support post-graduation. Okay, so just a quick overview. So on the final slide, you can see the brief outline of the key components of those stages, those 4 stages. The key is this sense of coherence across the stages. Stages might be called them different things. We've called them pre-arrival, induction, etc. But the important point is that the journey begins at school and continues after graduation. So I mentioned that this project, this has come out through a project that we were working on. If you want more information about the project, there's a link there to that particular report, and there's much more detail on those stages of the student journey and the learner journey. And that's me finished.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Piers. That was a great introduction. Next up is Dr. Dawn Lees, who will outline what Exeter University has done to ensure a smooth and successful student learning journey during COVID to help their students secure employment. Over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Simon. Could I have my first slide up, please? Great, thank you. So I'm Dawn Lees, I'm from the University of Exeter, and I'm going to run through kind of the approach that we take. So it's all changed a little bit in COVID, as you'll understand. All of our open day events have gone online. Our outreach work has gone online through things like the Exeter Scholars Programme, and our transition and induction activities have also gone online. We have very targeted transition support aimed at particular groups of students that are particularly at risk in the graduate recruitment market. These include mature students, disabled students, autistic students, and those from lower socioeconomic groups. Students can access a huge amount of data, as Piers alluded to, in prospectuses and league tables. And once they get to Exeter, we make sure they are fully aware of the way that we support them through this model that you can see here, the decide, plan and compete model. So we badge everything that we do in terms of decide, plan and compete, so that students can see at the beginning of their journey, they're thinking about what they want to do. We have a whole range of activities now online where students can start deciding what they want to do and testing their career ideas, developing their employability. Students then plan, once they know what they want to do, plan to get to that point. We support them through that part of their journey, and then once they are ready to compete in the graduate recruitment market, we support them with their CV application and interview skills so that they are very well placed in the graduate market. So that's the kind of model that we work around and how everything that we have is framed. So the main transition activity that we have for all first year undergraduates was previously called XFactor. This was delivered face to face, and we introduced it in 2008 after the economic crash in that year, because graduates had changed the way that they were recruiting students, and we wanted to make sure the entire cohort of first year undergraduates were prepared for life after graduation. This was in response to a number of things, to improve the key performance indicators for the university, in response to student feedback, and also because employers felt that Exeter graduates lacked commercial awareness. So we were keen to really work hard to plug those gaps. And we worked with a range of stakeholders, including employer critical friends, some well-known names such as PwC and Accenture, for example, and a large number of alumni who supported and contributed to our delivery. As a result of introducing that programme, there was a 70% increase in students gaining work experience because they understood the graduate talent pipeline more and the importance of networking with employers. And the feedback that we have from employers is that about 98% of them report that having work experience is essential to being recruited into the graduate market. So we were really keen to make sure that our students understood that and were signposted to the appropriate support so they could gain that work experience. As a result of this programme, we had a very positive impact on graduate destinations. So the number of our graduates entering graduate work after they'd been with us at Exeter. And we also were awarded a number of national awards from the Association of Graduate Recruiters, which was a great way of endorsing the programme. So in response to COVID, we moved that entire transition activity online and have repackaged it and calling it Create Your Future. This now blends live teaching and independent learning. And we've used the advances in technology over the past 10 or 12 years. Before, this just would not have been possible. So we can tailor this resource depending on the discipline a student studies and also at the stage of career thinking that they're at. So it's very tailored to each individual student, which is really great because they can work towards their own ambitions, and it draws down information that's pertinent to them at the time that they are. We've included a number of strategic priorities within this programme, such as sustainability and entrepreneurial education. And we also took into account the literature and industry guidelines to make this programme more impactful. So we included greater consideration about the future of work, the fourth industrial revolution, and in particular sustainability, issues that all of our graduates need to be aware of. And this is a fantastic signposting activity, so students can then move on, develop their skills, gain experiences, and develop their networks. But it's kind of like the baseline, the cornerstone of activity for all of our undergraduates. We have a very large stage 3, as Piers would have referred to it, set of activities. I'm going to focus on one of those now, called the Exeter Award. And we offer that to students as a framework to help students develop their employability. It's for taught students, for undergraduates and taught master's students. And it's a highly flexible framework which encapsulates the basic elements that we think students should engage with. So it includes work experience, it includes skills development, it includes CV or application form writing. And students can tailor this in any way they feel would best meet their needs. So they can test a career idea, they can explore a particular sector, and they can gain the experience that they need in order to thrive in the graduate recruitment market. We have 2 levels of award. This is the introductory level, the Exeter Award, and a further award called the Leaders Award for some students who are in leadership positions. And this brings together a huge amount of our provision within the careers service, and it enables students to start that process of reflection and articulation of the skills that they're developing. As I say, this is just one of the things that we do. I'd be here forever, I think, if I tried to go through everything, but this is a key aspect of the kind of stage 3 support that we have for our students. So finally, since the pandemic, just to give you an overview of the situation that we've been dealing with, everything is online. Front desk inquiries from students are up 5%, email inquiries are up 26%, event bookings are up 10%, and we've seen nearly a 300% increase in the level of online engagement that we have, which is incredible. Students really like the online environment. Some students find it a lot easier, working with the camera off, using the chat function. And for us, it's meant that we can deliver sessions across campuses to much larger audiences. And so we can serve a greater number of students. And so what this means now is that as we come into the kind of almost post-pandemic phase, we need to really assess our portfolio and think about what we keep online and what we return to as face-to-face. There's been a lot of good come out of this online learning. We're no longer trying to find rooms on campus and fight with timetables in quite the same way to get students to attend things. We've got a great deal more flexibility now. And with the kind of new blended learning approach that we have, we can reach many more students. They can do a lot of the work in their own time with the mixture of live and independent learning. So there is a lot of good that we need to learn from and move forwards with. And finally, the stage 4 progression phase that we have at Exeter, we support our graduates forever. So we have a very large alumni that we support, and we're now putting all of that resource online as well so that we can reach our graduates and support them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that will be launched at the end of next week, hopefully. So we've really had to think about the way we support our graduates too, and make sure that we are supporting them in what's quite a tricky graduate recruitment market, so that they can have the support that they need and access to the information they need at any time. So that's me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dawn. Thank you so much. Staying with the University of Exeter, we have next Scarlett Hilson-Wheeler, who's going to tell us about her own experience in a student learning journey and her recent placement experience and how that worked and if that could be better. If that's the case, Charlotte, over to you.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Is it all right if I have my first slide, please? Perfect. Actually, first, it's just one slide. So yeah, thank you, Dawn, and hi everyone. I hope everyone's doing well, and thanks for listening to me today. So I'll just start again introducing myself. I'm Scarlett, and I'm currently in my 3rd year. It's an integrated master's, so I've got 1 more year after this, so that's all good. Alongside my degree, I also host my own radio show at the uni, and I also love to play basketball, but not at the minute. It's just always raining, but hopefully soon. So what you can see on the screen is a rough timeline of my learning journey at the university. I don't know, is it on the screen for everyone? I can't see it.
Actually, there's just been a technical glitch and it's being reloaded as we speak. So bear with us and it'll be right back up.
That's all right. Okay, perfect. I'll just talk for a bit first. So what you will be able to see in a sec is just like a rough timeline of my learning journey at the university, where the university's employability services, the career zone, have been so helpful in just developing both my professional employability skills, as well as like preparing me for my life after graduation. So my journey begins way back at picture number 1, which is on the top left. And this is where I was sat in my school classroom writing my university application. And it surprisingly actually wasn't for a maths degree. I was actually planning to study fine art at university, but I'm quite sporadic and I just changed my mind at the last minute. And it's quite a random switch, I know. But this did mean that when I came to university, I literally had no idea of like any job or career prospects that were available to me as a maths student. However, through engaging with what the university and the career zone have to offer and just being open to new opportunities, I was able to find out a lot more. So, for example, as Dawn was saying earlier, all first-year students are encouraged to attend the Create Your Future, which I've put as image number 2 on screen. I hope everyone can maybe see it. So this is the day-long personal professional development program. And for me, it provided just a safe space to kind of just begin thinking about my future and also to kind of discuss the practical steps on how to get there with like some professional stuff, which is something I hadn't really had at school. And obviously it was a great taste into what like my university had to offer, and it really enticed me to get involved further and like think more about my future. So as a result, I signed up to lots of the different workshops. These were in areas like job applications, CV writing, time management, and how to use LinkedIn. And prior to COVID, as Dawn said, these were all held on campus. And I actually used to attend them between my lectures. And this was really nice as it provided like a break from the numbers and equations. And it also helped me to structure my day a bit more efficiently, which is something I know like a lot of uni students struggle with because there's no one kind of on your back once you're at university. And I really enjoyed like all these sessions. They allowed me to meet other students who I'm friends with today, and also have like insightful conversations with my peers about things that actually matter. And this is represented by pictures 8 and 9, when maybe the screen works, where I've just put a picture of my 2 friends that I've like made friends with through this. So kind of in summary, like COVID or not COVID, I always leave like these sessions and events just feeling really like proud and also productive, and with a range of kind of achievable action points that I can focus my energy on to become even more successful in my career journey. And as Dawn was saying earlier, attendance to these workshops can contribute to the 2 Employability Achievement Awards. And I found this was a great place for me and my friends to start, as we wanted to get more involved with the university, local community, and the professional world, but we weren't too sure how. So I've completed both of them successfully, which was good. And I always just recommend people to get involved with them, and just, yeah, they're good on your CV as well, which is always a bonus. So yeah, obviously it's a pandemic going on. So unfortunately, when I was halfway through completing my awards, the UK was put into lockdown and the university had to pause all in-person events. So my friends and I were actually kind of really impressed with how quickly and successfully everything was moved online. So throughout the pandemic, I've still been able to access all the kind of employability services as normal, which has not only just been helpful kind of employability wise, but also from a well-being perspective. It's been kind of so nice to be able to book onto stuff and have something to look forward to, kind of be able to log on, see some smiling faces and have some positive conversations, even if it is through a screen. So, for example, like recently over the past few months, I've had the chance to work with the School of Entrepreneurs and also the United Nations throughout the pandemic, which has been all facilitated by the university. And I don't know how I would have been able to do that otherwise. So that's been really nice of them to kind of get me involved with that. So yeah, the next thing is I was going to talk about tailored support. So we've all still been able to kind of receive this tailored support from the career zone and the university in the form of one-to-one appointments, despite everything that's going on. And you could see that with the statistics that Dawn showed. So this kind of highlights to me as a student just how like personal the service is, because I thought you'd kind of just become a number once you join a university because it's such a large institution, but kind of all this tailored help and people really being there to support you has shown me that that's not really the case. So that's been really nice. And like particularly this kind of tailored support has been so helpful for me, like on a personal one. One of the career zone staff at the university in my second year, I think it was, informed me of like a social mobility organisation called Upreach, and they've literally just been so helpful, like in terms of work experience and stuff like that. And I don't think I'd be where I was without them, and I wouldn't have ever found out about it without the university. So that's been really good for me. And then just before I wrap up, as I've been talking quite a while, my mouth's a bit dry. Yeah, it's been really nice that the career zone and the university has been able to not just develop me as a person, but it's also facilitated ways in which I can help others and support the people around me. So I recently joined as a mentor in their peer mentor scheme, where I'm able to use my skill set to support others and also to help widen the participation in higher education, which is just kind of, yeah, allowed me to develop my pre-existing skills and kind of, yeah, the new skills that I've never kind of had the chance to do before, which has been lovely. And then I don't think you can see the diagram, but there was a picture of me at the end, but I'm here today so you can see me now. So yeah, in summary, I really can't thank like everyone enough for like all the help I've had so far. The skills I've had have really helped me just in so many ways. I even started my own kind of community interest company at the beginning of last year as well. And I don't think I would have had the courage or the skills to do that without kind of the support I've been given. And I'm, yeah, so excited for like my future. I might do some further study or maybe a career within maybe the investments, presenting or charity industry. Again, it's a bit random, there's lots of options. But despite still being unsure of the exact destination, I feel like with my strong skill set that I've developed, when teamed with the fact that, as Dawn said, you get access to all these services for life, really assures me that everything will be more than okay and I will be all right. So yeah, that's everything from me. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's session. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me them. But yeah, thanks guys.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Scarlett, for such a positive and personal account of the whole sort of student journey experience. And Dawn was talking about sort of 25,000 students, and you're one of them, but it was just wonderful to hear the story of one person. Thank you so much. Great. So next we have Steve Wallace with an overview of the skills employers value in a post-COVID world. So I'll hand straight over to Steve.
Thanks, Simon. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see lots of faces that I don't normally see in meetings every day, which is an absolute pleasure, and nice to hear from Scarlett as well. I've just said to Scarlett, you should come to our senior management team meetings and talk to our colleagues, give them a bit of a buzz. So that's really good. I am going to share my screen with you. I have 3 slides. I'll try and keep it relatively brief. So hopefully you'll be able to see my slides in a second. Okay, so I'm assuming everyone can see my slides.
Yes.
As I say, my name's Steve Wallace. I'm the Employer Engagement and Student Employment Manager. So I work for the same division that Dawn works for. We're part of the senior management team there, which is Student Employability and Academic Success. My team's responsibilities essentially are working with employers. So some of the activity that Piers kind of alluded to in the first part of the talk around engaging employers with employability programs, experiential learning, getting employers to meet with our students and our graduates basically falls under my team's remit. I've been at the university for about 9 years, and the job is different every single day. It got really different on the 17th of March last year when we moved into lockdown and everyone had to shift straight off campus and work from home, which we are now. Essentially what that meant for universities, all of us who work in higher education, and also for our employer colleagues who we partner with on an awful lot of our activity, is essentially we had to deliver all of our engagement and our work and pivot it overnight to virtual delivery. So employers are now virtually recruiting, virtually onboarding, and graduates are starting in roles in a virtual environment, whereas education, and particularly my work, had to shift all of our physical activity, which we would deliver on site, like careers fairs, workshops, presentations, and shift those online. Most universities have gone down the route of delivering virtual careers fairs, trying to replicate really what you can get in a physical event, but online. Lots of different platforms used. Kate will probably know this. Employers are having to get their heads around all these different platforms. So that's been one great way actually for us as an institution to engage with our students across all of our campuses, because essentially we have 4, 2 in Devon and 2 in Cornwall. So being able to engage with employers and also allow our students to access content has been fantastic. One of the drives that we've seen, or one of the moves that we've really seen, is historically we have been co-creators with employers about events. So we would talk to employers to develop an event to run on campus. What we've seen ourselves move to is more curators. So we're now more in a position of the point where employers send us information and then we cascade that to students. So to give you an idea, over the autumn term alone, we promoted over 200 employer events through our online careers platform. As I've mentioned, the geographical barriers are removed. It's been brilliant in some ways for us to be able to access for students who are abroad, maybe if they're studying abroad or in a year abroad placement, to be able to access content that they might have missed if they were not on site. So for us, it's been really useful for that and given us an opportunity to share more broadly. Piers mentioned earlier about internships and work placements and experiential learning. Again, we've had to transition all of that work into a virtual environment. So we run a number of really successful internship programs within my team, including our Professional Pathways program, which is a co-delivered, a collaborative approach working with employers, delivering content for our students. And we had to pivot that completely online. So last year in the summer, we did 144 of those, working with employers and our students. Recently at a talk we had at Exeter, we were very lucky to have Steve Isherwood, who's the chief exec for the ISE, who Kate, you're going to hear from in a minute, is a board member. Stephen gave a really good understanding of the graduate labour market at the moment. And although it is not as buoyant as it was pre-COVID, with about 85% of graduate jobs still being advertised, some sectors have seen uplifts. So we've seen public sector take a pretty significant uplift in the number of jobs that are looking to recruit for graduates. Some sectors have kind of stayed pretty stable. So tech, consultancy, accountancy have stayed pretty much the same. But then obviously some sectors have taken a real hit. So hospitality and non-food retail particularly have been hit quite hard. But there are green shoots, and employers are planning ahead to do more graduate recruitment and start their graduate programs up in earnest once we move out of the COVID situation we're in, and hopefully we'll be doing that very, very soon with the vaccine rollout. What does that mean for us in the future? I think it's absolutely evident that blended approach is here to stay. The days of delivering everything face-to-face on campus with employers, I think, are gone. That will still be there, but the virtual environment that we've been able to develop, as Scarlett alluded to earlier, and Dawn, has really allowed us to broaden our offer to students and graduates. And it's exactly the same for employers. Stephen used the pendulum analogy. He said when COVID hit, the pendulum swung really one way to all virtual, and he said it will swing back, but probably not quite back to the level of face-to-face activity that employers were generally used to doing, because now we've all got our kind of heads around how that will work going forwards. That doesn't mean that employers won't still want to meet students face-to-face. It's hugely beneficial. It's great for talent pipelining students if you're able to attend an event on campus. So it's key for universities to look at how you work innovatively with employers to be able to get them onto campus to deliver activity that actually meets the business need, but also meets our students' need. And that's the kind of planning process we're in at the minute, as we progress through the next sort of 3 or 4 months, trying to plan for our autumn term delivery and what that will look like for our students and our employer partners. So I've tried to rush through that pretty quick because of time. If anyone would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can do. My LinkedIn profile's there, my email address is there. Happy to take any emails if you want to send me something afterwards. Hopefully that wasn't 28 minutes, which normally when I talk, it goes on for a long time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Steve. Going on to last but not least of our presenters today is Kate Croucher, who's going to talk a little bit about how employers can work more closely with universities to ensure a smooth transition for their students. Over to you, Kate.
Good morning, thank you. Really nice to see everyone today. I'm just doing the usual slide share. I think that's presenting now. And I've just got 2 or 3 slides to share with you. So yeah, good morning. I'm Kate. I manage recruitment. I'm the global lead at a company called FDM Group for all of our graduates globally. That's about 2,000 graduates every year that we hire, about 1,200 across the EMEA region. We're based in London, but we hire graduates into Frankfurt, into Paris, into Luxembourg, and increasingly into new territories such as Poland. So if you're representing universities in those regions, love to hear from you actually. So that's my role. And yeah, like everybody, COVID has presented us with some real enablers and some real challenges. And I've been asked this morning just to give an employer view on how we can work together a little bit more effectively to ensure that your graduates are set up for success and we find the really kind of good quality people that we're looking for. I wanted to keep it pretty simple actually. I wanted this just to be a discussion starter really. There's going to be some breakout rooms I believe, and so I'm going to keep this quite simple, but just to set a little bit of context in case you're not familiar with us. We're an IT services provider and we work across the software development lifecycle. So we're hiring, as I said, about 2,000 graduates a year globally into positions across the software development lifecycle. testers, developers, tech ops people, business intelligence, robotics, machine learning, all of that really cool, exciting stuff that's really happening out in the graduate space now. We hire graduates and we work with our clients on a kind of deployment consultancy basis. So we're essentially a consultancy business, and we provide that strategic workforce planning to our clients. It's all about identifying junior talent, early career professionals, and providing graduates with that opportunity to actually kickstart a career in tech. So a big part of our grad program is actually right at the start of the program, when graduates spend 3 months with us, really kind of building on the graduate skills they've developed at university and placing them and reframing them into a more of a commercial and tech environment. So that's what we do. Last year our hiring did take a hit, like everybody. We hired just over 1,000 graduates globally as opposed to 2,000. But this year we're finding that businesses actually, there are more than green shoots, as you can imagine. Tech opportunities are really in demand. All businesses have had to pivot very quickly and really ensure that the tech that they have at their disposal is working successfully. So we're very much back in business, and we'll be hiring another 1,200 graduates across EMEA this year. So really great news for all of us. So just to kind of talk very briefly about kind of the skills that employers are looking for. I think what's really interesting is that on this next slide, I've just kept it to 5 points. And when I was writing these, I thought, you know what? These are skills that every single one of us are going to identify. I don't think any one of us has not seen our roles change, our organisations change, the sectors that we work in change, and change very quickly. Speakers have already kind of referenced this. So I think you will also personally identify with how you've had to change and how you're having to change in your roles. And it's no different for graduates. It really, really isn't. But of course, the difference for us as business professionals is that, you know, we already have quite an experienced skill set, and sometimes years of experience to draw on. We've already got an established network internally, externally, business, personal, to draw on when times get tough and to help kind of really kind of think through what's going on in our careers. And potentially we've also got a bit more of a backup plan. So it's quite a challenging time, obviously, for graduates in terms of thinking about how they need to kind of pivot in terms of what employers are looking for. Oh, just bear with me. Obviously, COVID has pushed technology front and centre for every business, and with it, that need for digital skills. It's changed the working world forever. We know that businesses must capitalise on the growth of digital, so they can work more efficiently at maximum productivity. So we're not expecting graduates to arrive necessarily with a fully formed digital skill set. They are, however, going to be able to use whatever technical toolkits are at their disposal and have a quite heightened sense of digital curiosity. It's no longer that kind of curiosity, and competency is no longer reserved for your kind of full stack software developer. Everybody needs this. I think understanding how customers think and behave online, it's never been more important. So the need for analytics and data is absolutely essential. Collecting data has been hugely beneficial for any business in the last 12 months. And I think as companies look to forecast the impact of their finances and plan for the future, there's going to be a massive demand for analytical skills and digital insight. That's only going to increase. So, you know, graduates really need to grab hold of this, regardless of what sector they're interested in going into. There's definitely going to be much more of a demand, as I said, for those who've got a deep understanding of data and those who can kind of map impacted decisions based on data analytics. I want to kind of go on to this kind of adaptive mindset. I think a few people have already kind of referenced it. And it, you know, graduates have always needed, as employers, we've always looked for our graduate intake to be flexible, adaptive, you know, be able to solve problems. It's always been an important factor. But now more than ever is the need to be adaptive, not be fixed on one way of approaching a problem or a challenge, looking at things from a different angle, pivoting quickly and thinking creatively and innovatively. You know, when the pandemic hit, we all know that businesses had to change overnight. And, you know, this new agility that we all talk about, it's continued and it will continue for businesses to adapt and survive. And with that, we need that from graduates. We're all working on projects. You know, I think graduate programs have always had a huge feature about project working, but now more than ever. And therefore, they're all remote. So again, that kind of data-driven strategic skill set, the agile mindset, Scrum framework, really important in terms of how graduates can expect to be working when they're joining a program now. I want to pick up on the kind of taking ownership for opportunities. I referenced kind of networking earlier, and you know, working from home, I think it's true to say that there are a few businesses that are going to return to 100% working back in the office. There's lots of talk about 70-30 models, 60-40 models. Working from home is efficient and it's effective. And I think there's a desire for many people to have that perceived kind of work-life balance. Whether that's the reality is another matter. So working from home is going to continue in some shape or other. And if you think about kind of how graduates starting off in their career, what the impact of that is, it's potentially really quite big. Graduates are going to need to be able to very much more proactively seek opportunities to grow their network, create their own opportunities to progress. They're less visible. They're just less visible to the wider business. So they're going to have to really think about that. I hate to reference resilience because for me it's become the most overused word in the graduate recruitment world. But that remaining positive and remaining really focused on what needs to be achieved, because there are going to be massive setbacks, and I think that is just so important. You know, particularly when graduates don't have that physical environment to absorb business etiquette, you know, to have water cooler moments, to learn by osmosis because you just happen to be sitting in the right environment listening. That has gone, and it will come back to a certain extent, but it is predicted that few businesses will return to 100%. So again, employees need to be really thinking about seeking out actively the support that's available through mentoring schemes, through employee assistance, through wider business networks, and remaining positive, as I said, and focused on what's to be achieved. In terms of virtual team working, I think, you know, technology has really been a massive enabler actually in this space in the last 12 months. We're all thinking and we're all operating in a much more interconnected, often global environment. You know, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it weren't for the technology at our disposal. And if not globally, graduates will be certainly having to work outside of their immediate bubbles. So with that is coming an enormous emphasis on cultural awareness, empathy, emotional intelligence, understanding the needs of others and being able to work in that very interconnected, often global way. So it's an exciting time, but it's also quite a challenging time for graduates. And in terms of how we can work more closely with universities, I think that's never been more critical. And it's great to hear from Exeter in particular, and I'm sure you've all got your own models of how you're engaging with employers and how you're kind of working in a much more collaborative fashion and using the tech at your disposal. There's kind of 4 points that I've just want to end on. I described the first one as a kind of looking upwards and outwards approach. How can employers help you? I mean, we can help you by helping you understand what roles are in demand because it's changing. I would not have been talking about graduate roles in machine learning, process automation, even business intelligence until 18 months ago. And there'll be lots more around the corner. Cloud engineering, cloud engineers, all roles that are massively in demand. And I think it's incumbent on employers to help universities understand what roles they are and how your students can access them and what roles there and what skill sets are being played in business. So that's the first one. upskilling and self-learning, there's an abundance of online materials. In the UK, we talk a lot about Code Academy and Udemy, and there'll be equivalents across your own territories. And then I think, again, helping universities understand what technical skill sets are in demand. You know, Python, everybody is talking about the need for Python, and helping students pick up those. So influencing the curriculum in that respect and helping students really flex and adapt, both in terms of their professional skills, but also in terms of their technical skills too. I think if we look at how we do that, you know, we need to be working much more closely with students, with educators, with careers professionals to really understand how business is changing, and providing some of those activities that Stephen and Dawn have referenced really nicely previously. Insight days, virtual internships. We would never have been talking about virtual internships in my business really up until the last few months. Providing more insights for graduates to really understand what's going on in business in a more virtual way, if that can't be done physically. And of course, the bonus there is it's volume. We can provide so many more opportunities actually to reach so many more students by flexing the tech that we've got. And then, of course, employers inputting all of this development and all of these needs and all of these changing requirements into your industry boards, into sponsored modules, into projects, being part of consultative groups, just kind of collaborating clearly so that we all understand what's required. And then finally, it's really important, I think, to be providing data. So, you know, one of the things that we do as a business is provide lots of data to our university partners on how many graduates we've hired, what the rate of applications is looking like, and critically what the success rate is looking like. Are your students actually providing us with what we need? And if not, how can we work together with you to help them be more successful and to hit that ground running? So providing a lot more data. We've all got a lot more data at our fingertips, and it's important that we share that with you. So those are just my kind of thoughts in terms of the kind of employer voice. It's only one employer voice, but I'm pretty sure it will kind of resonate with probably quite a few other employers across the sector, and how we can, as I said, work together more effectively to give those opportunities really just to our graduates. So yeah, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kate. That was really interesting. A great way to finish off our collection of perspectives on the student journey. We're running slightly behind time, but don't worry about it. We still have plenty of time to go. Earlier on, we asked you a question in the poll, and the question was, how much focus is given to skills development and career advice while studying an HE at your institution? And 50% of you said some, 35% of you said a lot, and 15% of you said a little. So I think that's a mixed bag, but not too bad findings from that poll. We're now going to move to breakout rooms. So you will be automatically taken directly to a breakout room. Can I remind you, when you get to your breakout room, to put your camera and microphone on, say hi to the other people you'll find in your breakout room, and then you can discuss the question in the chat. And I'm just going to, which will be put in the chat now, but I'll just, the question will be, how much consideration is there on the learner journey in your context? Are the stages identifiable? What challenges are there in the approach that you've suggested? So that's the question that you will see. There we are. And we'll see you back here. You'll be brought back automatically in about 20 minutes time. So enjoy your conversation, and we'll see you soon. Hello, everyone. Grateful if you can turn off your cameras to save our bandwidth, and perhaps go onto mute as well, so we don't get too much distraction. I was in group 2. We had a super discussion. We've got time now for a little bit of question and answers. And just before we do that and before we wrap up, I thought it would be quite interesting to have a quick going around the rooms to find out about what was discussed and what was sort of some of the outcomes from those discussions. So as I said, I was in group 2 with Piers and a few colleagues and Natella, who had actually asked a question earlier around this idea of employers and internship programs and the fact that they'd stopped, and how do we get employers back again to offer these internship programs through sort of various online things, or how do we do that? We touched on that in our group discussion. So I think what I'll do is I'll hand over to Piers to talk a little bit about that discussion, and then we'll go around the rooms after that.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the stages and also about the idea of employers being involved in program development. And Magda from the group actually said that it's a national requirement and that there is an audit trail to see how employers have been involved in developing courses, which is quite an interesting angle. The question about the internship, and I think this is quite an interesting question. So the question really was about how does an institution persuade an employer to carry on an internship online when the employer is perhaps struggling with its own response to COVID and how it operates. I think the real question is, how does an institution do that on its own? Rather, and maybe Dawn and Steve might have more information about this, but I certainly know in the UK, the government has tried to encourage employers through a sort of a scheme to create internships. Where money is available for organisations to apply for that money and therefore provide some kind of internship online. But I don't know if that's the only answer. There might be better examples. And I think it does depend on the size of the organisation, the size of the company you're talking about, and possibly the sector it's involved in. And that's probably about it, really, I think.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Piers. So I don't know, Dawn, would you like to come in next, tell us a little bit about this issue around internship and attracting employees back into campuses, and maybe give us a quick roundup of Group 1?
It's probably more for Steve to talk about internships. That's the area his team looks after. So can I pass that over to Steve?
Okay, yeah.
I knew you were going to do that. Very swiftly moved, Dawn. Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it in my talk. We did move a huge volume of internships that were physical internships with students and graduates working for companies on site to virtual. If I'm honest, I think one of the big areas where we got success with that was through a personal interaction with the employer, being able to sell the benefit of that work being undertaken remotely. We've got experience of delivering remote internships at Exeter over the last 3 or 4 years, so we were able to evidence that to employers. And interestingly, last year through our summer pathways program, we had quite a lot of employers who were in lockdown and were struggling to get through COVID. So a lot of our interns ended up working for businesses to support their COVID recovery. How can you get your business through COVID, and use student support interns to actually help your business, potentially small projects, week-long projects that a student can work on and then produce a report or an action for the company. And it was successful. They're mainly with smaller businesses, so SME, small to medium-sized enterprises. I think the larger organisations who have the large graduate recruitment programs have seen a drop in placements and internships, far more than grad jobs. But that again is moving back to these virtual opportunities. I think it was purely down to tech, as Kate alluded to, employers getting their head around what tech was available and what they could do. They've got their heads around it now, and they're able to deliver on scale and on mass activity for students and grads. So I think if I would say anything, personal touch, having those conversations one-to-one with the employers is kind of key for us. I'll let Dawn talk about Group 2 now. Sorry, Dawn.
Great, thank you, Steve. We were really looking at the experience that people had of moving online. and how difficult it had been for both students and academics and other teaching staff. And we were exploring that at Exeter, we employ a lot of students to support the teaching. And this has many benefits because they're going through their own challenges themselves. They're able to react quickly and support breakout rooms and classes that are going on. And we've found that really valuable, having the students being engaged both as kind of the receivers of education and also facilitators of education, I guess you could call it, because they can support the academics in that interface. And that's been incredibly beneficial, I think, for our students. So that was really the main focus of the conversation that we had.
Great, thanks Dawn. And Kate, could you tell us a little bit about, I think you were with Group 4, was it? So have a quick summary of that.
Yeah, I'm going to actually let Steve do that because he was the facilitator. Okay. So sorry, Steve, everyone just keeps passing it back to you. But it's because you're so brilliant. Crack on.
I must have a face for passing over. I think our conversation was quite varied. We talked about continual professional development actually, and how that is different maybe for a university, but also how employers engage in that conversation. So Kate did a great job of explaining how FDM's model works with supporting their recent grads through intense program of training and skills development in their first 3 months, and then obviously developing through their career with FDM. So that was really interesting to kind of understand how an employer would look at that. We talked, interestingly, I learned something. I learned about the Ukrainian model for delivering support for students and how that works. So Simon, you obviously know that area very well, being in Kiev, but that was a really interesting conversation because it's quite different to the way the UK market works, kind of negotiating with academics and employers and students on creating that journey from their first year through to their graduation, and then obviously the iterations of that through different year groups. We also talked about the career journey of students looking for work experience, and one of the colleagues in the group talked about a support unit that's in place that assists students with developing that work experience, but also once they graduate actually supports graduates as well, which is something we kind of talked about. The UK market has moved more from short-term graduate support to almost lifelong graduate support once students come out of university. So really interesting conversation. We had some mic issues. Mics weren't working and there were good questions, but we couldn't hear. But yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. So that was the output for Group 4.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve. And there's one group who we haven't heard from, and I'm not sure who can report on that, and I'm not even sure which group that is. Anybody want to help me with that? It's fine, I think. We've actually come more or less to the end of our event today, and just before we finish, and just in case I forget, because I usually will, there will be a survey that will pop up in the chat box, and you'll also get this survey, and I think it would be really grateful if you could complete the survey and send it back to us to give us some feedback on this session that we've had today. To wrap up, perhaps if we can go round our speakers and ask for some sort of final comments, maybe bringing in some of the issues that were discussed today, perhaps a slightly sort of other perspective as well, not to put any pressure on you, but a couple of sort of closing comments I think would be really good. So Piers, could we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So it's been quite interesting to hear that the kind of stages are developmental. It depends on the maturity of the higher education system, the education system, and it also depends really, perhaps a key thing is about where the funding is for students, because some of the journey stages we have now link to that data that students can access, and a fee system that operates in the UK. So that was quite interesting. It was also quite interesting to hear how we had a very interesting discussion about it depends on the students and the courses they're studying. and the level at which they're studying as to how they have adapted to online learning. We also had that quite interesting discussions. That was good to hear. Thank you for that.
I was on mute, apologies. Thanks so much, Piers. And maybe if we can pop to Kate next. I know, Dawn, you thought you were coming, but let's do a reverse order on this, change things up a little bit. So Kate, yeah, your perspectives, your closing comments.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. And I guess for me, it's always going to be about the collaboration piece, and that, you know, I think developing the relationships that you have externally, because ultimately if we can't ensure our graduates are set up for success, no one is a winner here. So, you know, we've had 12 months to kind of really get our heads around this. Don't be afraid to reach out to employers, because, you know, they've all got different challenges and different sectors are affected differently. But, you know, anyone who's in the market of hiring future graduate talent absolutely needs to be partnering with the universities and just collaborating to help them understand what's going on within their own organisations. You know, for us, it's about inspiring and aspiring, and if we can help students see the possibility of a career in tech, then, you know, the universities are our kind of critical partners.
And you don't want to miss out on all these wonderful, bright graduates like Scarlett, for example. Scarlett, I don't know if you're still here, but it'd be good to hear some closing thoughts from you as well.
Yeah, of course, I'm still here. Yeah, so I think I had two. So one was kind of what works really well for like me as a student is we have like academic reps. So you have one person who's nominated and you can kind of feed back how things are going to them, and then they'll pass it on to like lecturers and teachers. And that's quite a good model that works to kind of funnel the information and stuff. And then my second one was probably like, it's all well and good having like so many opportunities open to like students and available for them, but I think a lot maybe needs to be done on getting students to actually fully engage with them, because maybe if you haven't had the experience I have, you might not have been involved in all these things. So I think that's another important thing to look at as well, is getting people involved in them. But yeah, thank you everyone. That's me done.
Brilliant. Thanks Scarlett. Dawn, just to jump to you now.
Thank you. I mean, I think Scarlett's made a really good point there about getting students engaged, because it's really easy to engage Scarlett. She's there, she wants to get involved. For us, it's getting to the students who are more reticent and don't understand the importance of getting involved, despite the fact that we have all these activities, mandatory activities for them to be involved with. I think for us, involving students in the co-creation of knowledge is really important. So not just taking feedback from them, but actually involving them in the design of activities, and rather like the students I mentioned earlier that are supporting the teaching, really getting students involved at the heart of what we do. So we develop activities based on feedback from students. I'm involved in or leading a project at the moment, which comes directly from feedback from a student who's now a graduate, and she's now sitting on the project advisory board and absolutely is key to the project's success. So it's not just about for us working for the students, it's absolutely involving them in what we do and how we develop the services, and also working really closely with Steve's team to make sure that what we're doing to develop the employability of students makes them fit for employers and attractive to employers in the graduate market. So yeah, students are absolutely key and at the heart of how we operate.
That's really interesting. Thanks, Dawn. And I'll put the last comment back to Steve, if you'd like to wrap things up for us.
Yeah, I echo everything that colleagues on the panel have kind of talked about. I think the one thing that I would say that I've kind of taken from the COVID situation and obviously trying to move from physical to virtual is don't be afraid to take a chance. When you work with students to understand what their needs are, and you also work with employers to understand what their needs are, take the plunge, be innovative, look at how you actually deliver activity, because you'll do things that might not work, and that's okay. But you'll also find that thing that works really, really well and has a huge impact for students and for employers. but you only get to understand that if you try it, if you stick to kind of regimented ways of working in the past, that that innovation doesn't come out. And I think that's the one thing I've taken from COVID, is trying to get my team to think innovatively about how we deliver activity for students. So, which is the fun part of the job, really. It's what I enjoy. So that would be my takeaway.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. And thank you to all of our panel for your fantastic contributions and ideas. It's been wonderful to get this perspective from the UK about how you've coped with this particular area of the student journey over the last year, and to get these different views. And I know that we've had a few comments about, we wish that our institutions and governments could hear all of this. Well, colleagues, please do sort of share the recording of this. Also, please share some of the ideas, have a discussion with your colleagues next time you're on a Zoom chat or a Teams chat, as we inevitably all are. But I'd really like to just say thank you to all of our panelists today. It was a really fantastic session. Thank you to you, our audience, for sticking with us and being here and attending today. I do hope that this was a useful experience for you. And final thanks from me will go to some of the back end, Camilla, who has put all of this together, and also Nicola, who has managed all of the tech and brought us all here pretty much uneventfully for the last 2 hours. So final reminder from me would be to complete the survey for us, please. You will get the recording, and the survey will be emailed to you. So grateful if you could send that back. And I look forward to meeting some of you in my travels when I manage to start traveling again. But otherwise, stay well, and thank you very much.